Sometimes a magic card comes by that just makes you really sad. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about a new Theros Beyond Death spoiler card. We're going to be talking about the concept of water zombies, really. Just the idea of aquatic undead. This is something that doesn't actually show up very much in Magic the Gathering, and that's why it stands out to me. So the spoiler card that I have today is very evocative, very flavorful, but I wanted to touch on a couple of cards from Magic's history that tie into it, because for me, when I think of aqua zombies, aquatic zombies, the first thing I think of is drowned. Now, every time I have to look for this card, without fail, I type in the drowned, and then I can't find it because whatever search engine goes, yeah, sorry, that doesn't exist. And I just sit there going, no, I know it was a card. I know it wasn't a very good card, but I remember this being a card. It has to exist. And that's when my brain goes, it's probably just drowned, buddy. Although it feels like they should be called the drowned. But either way, drowned is what the card is called. This is a very, very old school zombie. And I remember this card really stuck with me after I saw it for the first time. So it costs a blue and 1 for a 1/1 zombie creature, 1 black mana to regenerate it. That's an old school ability you don't really see so much anymore. Regeneration's a pretty solid ability. I mean, you pay 1 mana and it will stop the creature from being destroyed. It's weird because also when you think of regenerate, I remember this was a bit of something that would screw with your brain when you started playing with Magic, especially if you were used to Dungeons and Dragons or other things where regenerating creatures could come back to life. Well, you can't regenerate a creature from death back to life in Magic the Gathering. And I remember finding that a little bit weird. But overall, the fact that regenerate stops destroy effects, damage, a whole slew of things makes it a very powerful ability. But you'll note that now they tend to shy away from using regenerate, and they give other abilities that are similar to regenerate. They tend to go with things like, I'm going to make a creature indestructible. And it's preemptive, because I mean, well, regeneration, you had to use it preemptively as well at some phases. There was different times in Magic existence where you had to use regeneration ahead of time, and then there was points where you had to use it in response. So I've been through a lot. Either way, this is a blue zombie that regenerated for black mana, which was an interesting concept because you got to remember, this is all the way back in 1994. That's a long, long time ago, back when we didn't have as many Magic cards. So things really stood out. The flavor text says, we asked Captain Saul what became of the Seraphina, but all he said was, ships that go down shouldn't come back up. So that's the whole, yeah, no, we don't want to be dealing with ship, like basically, when a ship goes down, you don't want to see the crews from these ships returning to the world of the living, right? Because they are not living, and that's not good times. The artwork is done by Quentin Hoover. I absolutely love Quentin Hoover's artwork. It's very distinctive. Here we can see there are a number of either pirates, or they could just be regular style, sailors and stuff like that. But I don't know. I get the pirate vibe from it. The whole idea behind it to me is that these are pirates that are essentially being punished for a life of piracy. Some sort of curse has befallen them, and now they're the living dead, and they need Johnny Depp to help them. So in the artwork here, we can see a number of different variations. Some of these people seem to be more rotted away than others, right? If you look at the guy in the front, he looks like a newer member of the drowned. He still has his clothes are all in good shape. He's got like his facial hair and everything. It's all still intact. If you compare him to the guy who's in the back left, that guy still has his clothes, but his face looks a little emaciated, like maybe he has been drowned for a bit longer. But directly behind the main guy in front, you can see somebody who's obviously gone through a lot. I mean, you'd imagine that fish would swim by and pick at you and things like that too. It's horrific. They're all dead-eyed. You can see just the whiteness in their eyes. And at first, you think that this artwork is just this kind of stationary sort of, okay, they're just kind of standing there and you're looking at them. But nope, you can see the hands of the sailor, the pirate in the front. He has got his hands around the seaweed and he's just kind of moving it out of his way. The guy in the back with the little sailor cap, you can see his hand reaching out claw-like. So you actually get the idea that there is some motion here, but it's more of a slow, fluid motion that would happen under the water. So for me, this is the most evocative, like, underwater undead that I've ever seen. And it's actually a concept that does not exist very much in Magic the Gathering at all. So the next card we're going to talk about isn't actually a human. It is a Merfolk Zombie. Now this is an extremely rare thing to find, right? There's lots of different variations of zombies. Very, very, very few Merfolk Zombies. In fact, there's only two. There's this one and the spoiler card that we're going to talk about. So Vidalian Zombie is a black and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Zombie with protection from green. And protection from green is an ability you just didn't see that frequently in Magic the Gathering. This card stood out on multiple levels. The Merfolk Zombie concept was pretty crazy. This zombie is clearly underwater where you don't normally see most zombies. I don't know why I enjoy that concept so much, but I genuinely do. And the flavor text says, every last one of you will become my servant. It's a shame you won't live to see the irony. And that Sabo Tavik, the Phyrexian General, this all happened during the Phyrexian invasion of Dominaria. And it's a pretty horrific concept. It really helped to illustrate just how far the reach of the Phyrexians had gone, to the point where there are Phyrest versions of Merfolk even, right? They haven't just managed to conquer the lands, they're starting to conquer seas, oceans, any bodies of water that harbor life are going to be preyed upon. And there's just something about the way that they painted this Merfolk. So when we turn to take a look at the artwork for the Vidalian Zombie, it does a good job of showing its alien nature. This is a sad side effect of the invasion of Dominaria, and you can see normally when you look at like zombies, they'll depict them in movies and things like that as slow, shambling kind of beasts. They can't really control their limbs perfectly. Their movement doesn't match the regular movement of a human being. Well, Merfolk are going to be graceful swimmers in most cases, right? That's how they're presented. The artwork here helps to present the alien undead nature of this Vidalian Zombie by having its body like arched back the way it is. This looks like it's swimming forwards, but it's just not like capable of swimming upright forwards, where like most Merfolk would swim with their kind of head first, right? This is definitely not head first swimming. This is like, I am moving forwards and my body is just kind of getting pulled back, like more of like a rubber doll style scenario and less control over the body. So I like that illustrates, it's got the form of a Merfolk, but when you look at the face, it looks all horrific and you can see the lack of life in its face. It's all there to paint an excellent and very tragic picture. And that actually leads us to today's spoiler card, which is another zombie Merfolk. As I mentioned, it's the second zombie Merfolk in existence. This is Mire Triton. 1 black and 1 for a 2/1 zombie Merfolk. It has Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, you put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard and you gain 2 life. The flavor text says, caught between life and death, between land and sea, between thought and oblivion. Now, from a mechanical perspective, 2 mana for a 2/1 with Death Touch is okay. And when you add in the ability that you're going to gain 2 life and also get to mill some cards into your graveyard for either reanimation effects or escape effects, because Theros has a bunch of escape effects, this is a pretty tight little package. I mean, this isn't some kind of back-breaking amazing card, but it is an enabler. It's not too bad. I mean, they could have easily just made this a 2 mana 2/1 Death Touch that milled you for 2, and it still would have been acceptable. But the life gain is a nice little bonus to toss in there. Now, the artwork on this card is absolutely intense. The concept behind this card is pretty sad when you take into account what it said in the flavor text there, caught between memory and oblivion. Because we take a look at the Mire Triton, and this is a returned, right? You can see this is one of the returned from the golden mask on its face. I like the fact that the golden Merfolk mask actually has the fins that mimic how the face looked in reality as well, while this Triton was alive. Oh, there's just something about the dark, gloomy nature of this artwork, right? Like this is a Triton that's still somewhat trapped is probably living in one of the underworld cities. And you can see that this Triton is standing in a just basically black looking murky bog swamp, right? Instead of being in a nice, either fresh or salt water, depending on what they wanted, so, like clean body of water, they're here stuck in this bog, in this mire, surrounded by all these dead fish, right? Instead of enjoying life, going out, catching fish, living life to the fullest, just caught in this sort of boggy awfulness. You've got the netting on her, which is both kind of decoration and almost makes her look like trash to a degree as well. You know, like the fish nets, it kind of has the feel of, if you would see like in the real world, you would see like sea creatures that are caught up in mankind's garbage, that sort of thing. It does give me that kind of a feel. All the fish that are pooled around her while she's kind of just standing there amongst them, not really standing because she's a merfolk, right? So just kind of like flipper floating, or maybe this is a merfolk variation where they have legs too. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember whether Theros has just the finny type, the legged type, or a combination of the two. But either way, there's something about the stance as well, combined with the absolute forlorn face, the mask, the sorrow, the emptiness, the desolation, the depression that is etched into that mask is so intense and evocative. Seb McKinnon is an incredibly talented artist. This artwork is it just makes you give up hope overall. And I really enjoy it for the depth of what it is. And it's so interesting to see creatures like merfolk. A lot of them can be like tropical fish, right? And this is just it mutes the color. They're supposed to be big, flashy, and that flashiness, that colorfulness is kind of it's kind of indicative of being full of life, brimming with life. And this is the opposite. Just despair surrounded by death and just shadows. Oh, it's so incredibly evocative. And it admittedly can be a bit of a bring down if you look at it too much and think about it too much. But overall, just the evocative nature of it, I thought that it was worth discussing. So let me know what you think overall. What do you think of the card from a power level? What do you think of the artwork and the flavor underneath it all? I find it absolutely entrancing myself. I really love it. We started out with Quentin Hoover, right? And his artwork's very distinctive. Well, Seb McKinnon is another one where he stands out amongst other magic artists, right? There's different categories where a lot of the magic art kind of feels like it blends in and you can't really tell who does it. And then there's certain artists who leave their stamp on the game. And I'm happy to say Seb McKinnon is definitely one of those people. He's a treasure to have around in terms of art creation. Just the mask and the stance, everything, it comes together in such a fantastic way. Either way, let me know your thoughts. Glad you are here, my friends. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. And remember, together we are the sixth color of magic.